Welcome to another virtual walk by the Great Yarmouth Heritage Guides. This heritage walk is of a slightly different nature from most of the other virtual walks, as it focuses on the roads themselves rather than any buildings or items that might be situated on them. Whilst not always the case, when roads are named as an area is developed for housing or other reasons, they often follow a theme within a group. It may be birds, trees, people, planets, or any topic that allows a choice from a selection of names. Great Yarmouth is no different in this aspect, but does have one or two different or unusual road name collections within the borough. This walk will cover a few of these small road groups, largely at the north of the town, and give some explanations of their connections and origins. Listen out for those familiar names with perhaps not so familiar backgrounds. Most people will need little or no explanation about Nelson or Dickens, but Jellicoe, Napoleon and Walpole may not prompt an immediate connection. Road names are chosen or approved by the local council, and more modern or recent developments have often followed, say, tree names or bird names. But earlier choices tended to be more connected to the immediate locality, nationally known people, or a town's heritage. Roughly at the end of the 18th century, Great Yarmouth was still contained within the town walls, and had only a few main roads that linked the ends of the rows. Most of the road names within the town have therefore been allocated since around 1800, when development outside the town walls became more prolific. There's a particularly strong connection with the Victorian and Edwardian eras. So now we will start our virtual tour of some of Great Yarmouth's odonyms, odonym being the word for the general term meaning road names. Our starting point is at the junction where Jellicoe Road meets Caister Road, and from where we will walk eastwards. As with Jellicoe, many of the road names in and around this area have naval or maritime connections. Jellicoe Road is named after Admiral of the Fleet John Jellicoe, who lived between the mid-1800s and mid-1900s. He commanded the Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jutland in 1916 during World War I. He later became the first Sea Lord and oversaw the expansion of the Admiralty until 1917. Walking towards the seafront and North Drive is Craddock Avenue, and where we will turn right. Here we discover Sir Christopher Craddock, or Kit as he was known, a British rear admiral who earned a reputation for great gallantry. His lifetime was between the mid-1800s to the early 1900s. He was close to the royal family and appointed to the royal yacht. In World War I, he was killed during a battle off the coast of Chile in 1914, when German ships sank his flagship. At the end of Craddock Avenue we meet Seymour Avenue. Now meet Admiral of the Fleet Sir Edward Hobart Seymour. Born in 1840, he was a Royal Navy officer and served in the Crimean War and at least 3 other major battles of the time, spending much of his time in the Far East. Even though a mission failed during what was known as the Boxer Rebellion in China, he was welcomed back to Portsmouth by thousands of people lining the beach and the pier. Moving south with a quick left turn takes us through Fisher Avenue, named after Admiral Sir Frederick Fisher, living from 1851 to 1943, and who became President of the Royal Naval College in Greenwich in 1911. The short avenue meets Perebrowne Avenue, which takes us well back to the 14th century, and strong connections with the town. Perebrowne was Lord Admiral of the Navy under the Kings Edward II and Edward III. Born in Great Yarmouth and living in the area where the Conge is now placed, he led the English fleet that annihilated the French navy during the Battle of Slees in 1340. The French lost around 160 ships and 15,000 sailors. Perebrowne was also a Member of Parliament for the borough and died in 1343. Walking a little further brings us to Beresford Road. Charles Beresford lived from 1846 until 1919 and was a British Admiral and MP. He became known as Charlie B and was considered to be the personification of England's John Bull, often being seen with his trademark bulldog. A right turn from Beresford Road takes us to Beatty Road. Beatty Road is from the World War I naval officer David Richard Beatty, who served under Sir John Jellicoe in the Battle of Jutland in 1916. He is famously quoted as saying, "There seems to be something wrong with our bloody ships today," after 2 of them exploded. Needing little explanation, Raleigh Avenue is after Sir Walter Raleigh, the explorer favoured by Queen Elizabeth I, and who popularised tobacco in England. We meet Barnard Avenue, where the naval road links end and a new series begins. Barnard Avenue is named after Sir John Barnard, who lived between 1685 and 1764. He was a politician and a fierce opponent of Sir Robert Walpole, who is generally accepted as the first true Prime Minister. Barnard's principles overshadowed those of Walpole, who was suspected of running a corrupt government and who resigned as Prime Minister in 1742. Walpole Road will crop up a little later, so at the end of Beatty Road, where we meet Barnard Avenue, we can now turn left and then quickly right into Sandringham Avenue, walking towards the junction with Hamilton Road. We turn right into Hamilton Road. From Sandringham Avenue along Hamilton Road to Caister Road, we have an area of royal connections where many of the names will be familiar. So we have the royal residences of Sandringham, Balmoral and Windsor as avenues, followed by the general name of Royal Avenue, named in the early 20th century when the monarchy had a huge national influence. But next we come upon Alexandra Avenue, with a less obvious connection. This is Alexandra of Denmark, who became Queen Consort of the United Kingdom as the wife of Edward VII, son of Queen Victoria, and visitor to Great Yarmouth on several occasions. Passing Alexandra Avenue, we arrive very quickly at Osborne Avenue, also a lesser-known name. Osborne House takes us back to royal residence connections, as it was built in East Cowes on the Isle of Wight for Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. It was their summer home and rural retreat, and where Queen Victoria died in January 1901. The road that we have just walked, taking us past all the royal connections, is Hamilton Road. Not far from this point ran the Great Eastern Railway line, whose chairman was Lord Claude Hamilton. Within the name is perhaps a clever choice, or possibly unwitting coincidence, since Hamilton Road was originally called Mill Road, after the corn mill that was situated on its northern side. The middle part of Hamilton contains 3/4 of the letters of its original first name. At the end of Hamilton Road we meet up again with Caister Road, where after a left turn and a short walk we meet with Northgate Street. At its southern end, where it meets with Town Wall Road, stood an elegant entrance to the town built in the 13th and 14th centuries at the same time as the town wall. At the time it was the most northern part of the town outskirts, so becoming the North Gate. Gate coming from the Viking word gata, meaning road or way. It was the north road into the town. But returning to the earlier stage of the road, we pass the end of Salisbury Road, and starting another road series of eminent statesmen and prime ministers. Lord Robert Gascoigne Cecil was granted the name of Lord Salisbury, and was Prime Minister in the late Victorian times, giving us Salisbury Road. Further along Northgate Street we meet the junction with Beaconsfield Road, and where we turn left and walk towards the seafront and North Drive. Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli was the first Earl of Beaconsfield, and lived between 1804 and 1881. A walk along Beaconsfield Road brings firstly Harley Road on our left. Robert Harley lived between 1661 and 1724, and was Queen Anne's Lord High Treasurer, effectively Chief Minister, the equivalent to today's Prime Minister, but without that title. It's said that the famous London street associated with the medical profession, Harley Street, is also named after him. Further along and also on our left is Garfield Road, which has an unusual connection with Queen Victoria. James Abraham Garfield was in fact the 20th President of the United States, but was assassinated after only 6 months in office, and in 1881 during the reign of Queen Victoria. The Queen sent a handwritten note and white wreath to his wife Lucretia, which had a prominent place on Garfield's coffin. The wreath was dried and preserved, and is on display at Garfield's home in Cleveland for visitors to view during guided tours. Further along Beaconsfield is Arundel, and again on our left. Thomas Howard was the 14th Earl of Arundel, living between 1586 and 1646. He was a politician, English courtier, and prolific art collector, leaving a huge collection of artifacts to the University of Oxford. He was given the title of First Earl of Norfolk. Arundel Castle is the official seat of the Duke of Norfolk, giving us the connection. A few paces further brings us to Walpole Road, named after the man considered to be the first true Prime Minister, Robert Walpole. He remains the longest-serving Prime Minister, achieving 20 years in office, but he was impeached for corruption and imprisoned in the Tower of London for 6 months. He resigned in 1742. He has the Norfolk connection of being born at Houghton Hall in North Norfolk in 1676. As a final selection for our virtual walk, we will take 1 or 2 giant strides through the town that would be otherwise impractical on a real walk. Here we will look at a few of the less obvious road names. We start the selection with the Conge, a strange road name that often confuses. Centuries ago, when the town was in its early stages, there would have been a king's tax collector in this area. He would collect the taxes from the many and various ships that used the river and port before they were allowed to leave. They were given official permission after paying their dues. The word conge is of French origin and simply means official permission to leave. And now let's jump to Napoleon Place, often thought to be after Napoleon Bonaparte, the belligerent French emperor. But thankfully this is not the case. This is a tribute to Emperor Louis Napoleon III, the nephew of Bonaparte, who took his country against the Russians in the Crimean War of 1854, and was considered to have the well-being of working people at his heart. Marine Parade and Napoleon Place were being laid out at precisely the time of the Emperor's activity. And now we take ourselves to two adjoining roads a little further south, arriving at Duncan Road and Camperdown. Camperdown relates to the Great Sea Battle of Camperdown, which took place in 1797, and the man in charge of the fighting fleet was Admiral Lord Adam Duncan. The fleet of ships was temporarily anchored off the coast of Great Yarmouth, and even to this day there remains a cast iron water pump in Galston that was installed under the instruction of Duncan for the supply of fresh water for the waiting fleet. Camperdown is unusual in that it is just one word with no road, street, avenue or place afterwards. And finally a visit to the marketplace, where the road around it is known now as simply the marketplace. Regular visitors or many local people might remember the east side of the market as having a number of butchery businesses, and this has been the case for centuries. Only in recent times have they declined. The east road of the market was once known as the Shambles, the city of York also having a shambles to this day. The name is from an Old English word, fleshermills, which was the term used for meat shelves, and later a general term for butchery area. Our often used modern phrase of something being a shambles is an allusion to it being a bit of a butchered mess. There are many more roads in the town that have interesting and sometimes unexpected origins, but for now we hope that this short tour around a few of them has perhaps solved a few mysteries. Perhaps you know or even live in one of the roads we have covered, and we hope this brief piece of history might inspire you to learn more of Great Yarmouth's rich heritage on one of our real-life walks when they are back on the calendar.